Peace be upon you, brothers and sisters. In today's series of Worship God Alone, we are going to discuss about Zakat. Zakat is one of the most misunderstood and corrupted pillar of Islam. In today's agenda, we are going to discuss about what is Zakat, who gave the first Zakat, when to give Zakat, how much to give Zakat, whom to give Zakat, what is the importance of giving Zakat, myths of Zakat, hadith about Zakat and how it is against Quran, and finally we will conclude what we learn from this video, God willing. What is Zakat? There are 5 pillars of Islam. Shahada, which means proclaiming the belief in one God. Salat, which is contact prayers 5 times a day. Fasting, abstaining from eating and drinking from dawn to sunset during the month of Ramadan. Zakat, an obligation to distribute a portion of income earned. Hajj, making a pilgrimage to Mecca. In simple words, Zakat means obligatory charity. Who gave the first Zakat? Before understanding the current scenario of corrupted Zakat, we have to understand who gave the first Zakat. Chapter 16 verse 98. When you read the Quran, you shall seek refuge in God from Satan, the rejected. Chapter 21 verse 72. And we granted him Ishak and Jacob as a gift, and we made them both righteous. Abraham delivered all religious duties of Islam as per chapter 21 verse 73. We made them imams who guided in accordance with our commandments, and we taught them how to work righteousness and how to observe the contact prayers, salat, and the obligatory charity zakat. To us, they were devoted worshippers. Islamic history has to be divided into multiple blocks. One is Adam to Abraham. In this block, it was mostly on preaching the belief in one God. Abraham to the revelation of Quran. This block consists of all the practices which we follow. The revelation of Quran. Quran mentions the modification in the religious practices. Example, rule of fasting changed. Chapter 2, verse 187. Permitted for you is sexual intercourse with your wives during the nights of fasting. This was not allowed for the previous generations before the Quran. If the rule is not changed, there is no mention in the Quran. Example, 5 times salat. Method of doing the prayer. The 4 months of Hajj. The percentage of zakat, which was 2.5%. So, the first zakat in the Islamic history was mandated to Prophet Abraham. Since all practices are being taught to Prophet Ibrahim by God, Prophet Ibrahim was called the father of our religion, and Prophet Muhammad was told to follow the religion of our father Abraham. Chapter 22, verse 78. Abraham, the original messenger of Islam. You shall strive for the cause of God as you should strive for his cause. He has chosen you and has placed no hardship on you in practicing your religion, the religion of your father Abraham. If he is the father of our religion, what did he contribute? He was taught salat, fasting, zakat, and hajj. Chapter 2, verse 135 to 136. They said, you have to be Jewish or Christian to be guided. Say, we follow the religion of Abraham, monotheism. Chapter 3, verse 95. Say, God has proclaimed the truth. You shall follow Abraham's religion, monotheism. He never was an idolater. Chapter 4, verse 125. Who is better guided in his religion than one who submits totally to God, leads a righteous life, according to the creed of Abraham, monotheism. God has chosen Abraham as a beloved friend. Chapter 6, verse 161. Say, my Lord has guided me in a straight path. the perfect religion of Abraham, monotheism. He never was an idol worshipper. And finally, Prophet Muhammad was ordered to follow the religion of Prophet Abraham. Chapter 16, verse 123. Then we inspired you, Muhammad, to follow the religion of Abraham, the monotheist. He never was an idol worshipper. To sum up, from Quran it is clear that Prophet Abraham was the first to give Zakat. Then all the believers started to give Zakat, and Prophet Muhammad was also giving the Zakat. Quran was revealed. Since the practice of Zakat was well established for centuries and generations, it was followed as is even during the revelation of Quran. You will not find any historic reference on anyone asking Prophet Muhammad, what is Zakat? Or what percent of Zakat has to be given. It is universally accepted the percentage of Zakat is 2.5. When to give Zakat? Zakat has to be given on the day of harvest. Chapter 6, verse 141. Zakat must be given on the day of harvest. He is the one who established gardens, terrorized and unterrorized, and palm trees and crops with different tastes, and olives and pomegranate, fruits that are similar yet dissimilar. Eat from their fruits and give the due alms on the day of harvest, and do not waste anything. He does not love the wasters. If you don't read the Quran carefully, you might miss the importance of this verse and easily fall into the trap of Satan. There are two words here. 1. Due alms. 2. Day of harvest. God says pay the due alms on the day of harvest. We all know that Zakat is an obligation on our income. So Quran says pay the obligation. In other words, the obligation is due on the day we get the income. What happens on the day of harvest? I get paid for my work. So in return, I have to pay my due alms on the day I get paid. In modern days, we harvest our paycheck. So on the day of paycheck, we have to pay our Zakat of 2.5% on our income. We should not keep it till next year. It is not our money. The more we delay, the more we step out of God's mercy. How much to give? Zakat is 2.5% of any income we receive. This percentage is universally accepted in Islamic world. Chapter 51 verse 19. A portion of their money was set aside for the beggar and the needy. Set aside means something we know, what we have to do, how much we have to set aside. Chapter 2 verse 2 and 5. Recipients of charity. They ask you about giving. Say the charity you shall give to the parents, the relatives, the orphans, the poor, and the traveling alien. Any good you do, God is fully aware thereof. Chapter 30, verse 38. Therefore, you shall give the relatives their rightful share of charity, as well as the poor and the traveling alien. This is better for those who sincerely seek God's pleasure. They are the winners. Chapter 17, verse 26. You shall give the due alms to the relatives, the needy, the poor, and the traveling alien, but do not be excessive, extravagant. So all these verses clearly says that the percentage was already established, and the details to whom it has to be given are detailed in these verses. Whom to give? Zakat goes in the sequence as per verse 2, 2 and 5. Parents. If the parents are not needy, then our Zakat should spill to next block, which are relatives. Relatives. If you don't have any needy relatives, then our Zakat should spill to next block, which is orphans, and it moves down till our Zakat is exhausted. While we talk about Zakat, God also encourages us to give charity in addition to Zakat. Throughout the Quran, God encourages us to give charity, and charity remits the sins. The verses which talks about charity are chapter 2, verse 270. Anonymous charity better. Any charity you give or a charitable pledge you fulfill, God is fully aware thereof. As for the wicked, they will have no helpers. God is the only one who guides. Chapter 2, verse 272. You are not responsible for guiding anyone. God is the only one who guides whoever chooses to be guided. Any charity you give is for your own good. Any charity you give shall be for the sake of God. Any charity you give will be repaid to you without the least injustice. Chapter 2, verse 271. If you declare your charities, they are still good. But if you keep them anonymous and give them to the poor, it is better for you and remits more of your sins. God is fully cognizant of everything you do. Importance of Zakat. The vital importance of Zakat is reflected in God's law. Chapter 7, verse 156. My mercy encompasses all things, but I will specify it for the righteous who give Zakat. God's mercy falls on those people who give the obligatory charity Zakat. So those who give Zakat, as per Quranic verses, they get the promised mercy from God. They will never have any financial problem in their life. God is rich. God is bounteous. Chapter 2, verse 263. Kind words and compassion are better than a charity that is followed by insult. God is rich, clement. Chapter 2, verse 267. What to give? O you who believe, you shall give to charity from the good things you earn and from what we have produced for you from the earth. Do not pick out the bad therein to give away, when you yourselves do not accept it, unless your eyes are closed. You should know that God is rich, praiseworthy. The best investment. Chapter 2, verse 261. The example of those who spend their monies in the cause of God is that of a grain that produces 7 spikes with 100 grains in each spike. God multiplies this manifold for whom He wills. God is bounteous, loyal. Chapter 2, verse 268. The devil promises you poverty and commands you to commit evil, while God promises you forgiveness from Him and grace. God is bounteous, omniscient. Numerous verses in Quran about Zakat go hand in hand with Salat. Let us see some example. Chapter 2, verse 43. You shall observe the contact prayer Salat and give the obligatory charity Zakat. Chapter 2, verse 83. We made a covenant with the children of Israel. You shall not worship except God. You shall honor your parents and regard the relatives, the orphans, and the poor. You shall treat the people amicably. You shall observe the contact prayer Salat and give the obligatory charity Zakat. Chapter 2, verse 110. You shall observe the contact prayer Salat and give the obligatory charity Zakat. Chapter 2, verse 277. Those who believe and lead a righteous life and observe the contact prayer Salat and give the obligatory charity Zakat. The winners. Chapter 9, verse 71. The believing men and women are allies of one another. They advocate righteousness and forbid evil. They observe the contact prayer Salat and give the obligatory charity Zakat. Chapter 19, verse 31. He made me blessed wherever I go, and enjoined me to observe the contact prayer Salat and the obligatory charity Zakat for as long as I live. Chapter 19, verse 55. He used to enjoin his family to observe the contact prayer Salat and the obligatory charity Zakat. He was acceptable to his Lord. Myth about Zakat. These are some of the myths about Zakat, and let us see the falsehood attached to these myths and how it is against Quran. The verse 6:141 talks about harvest, so it is applicable only for agricultural society. Let us check the verse. Important commandments to all believers. Chapter 62, verse 9. O you who believe, when the congregational prayer Salatul Jummah is announced on Friday, you shall hasten to the commemoration of God and drop all business. This is better for you if you only knew. Chapter 62, verse 9 talks about dropping all business. Does that mean this verse applies only to those who are doing business? Thus, this verse excludes people who are employed from performing Salatul Jummah. Same way, day of harvest means the reward of the work we did. It can be income from sales, salary we receive, wages being deposited, commission guaranteed, incentive received. It can be any income. Zakat is not to be given to parents. Chapter 2, verse 215 clearly says parents are the first to receive their rightful share in the zakat distribution. Recipients of charity. Chapter 2, verse 215. They ask you about giving. Say, the charity you give shall go to the parents, the relatives, the orphans, the poor, and the traveling alien. Any good you do, God is fully aware thereof. If you have debt, you don't have to pay zakat. Imagine I earn $1,000 every month and I bought a home for $300,000. I repay half of my salary, $500 every month. 300 by 500 equals 600 months. 600 months equals 600 by 12 equals 50 years. The interest is not added in this 300,000 home loan. So for the next 50 years, I won't be paying any zakat. This is not how God's system works. God says to pay when you receive any income. Chapter 6, verse 141. Zakat must be given on the day of harvest. Also, in 1,000, the 2.5% is just $25. And if you pay that, God promises prosperity and we will start to earn more money, inshallah. I am poor, I receive zakat, so I don't have to pay zakat on the zakat I received. Zakat is not a commandment for rich or poor. It is an obligation on all the believers. God is the best provider, but He wants us to take credit. Are you asking them for a wage? Your Lord's wage is far better. He is the best provider. Chapter 51, verse 58. God is the provider, the possessor of all power, the supreme. Zakat money has to flow like a waterfall, rich to poor, poor to poorer. God's economic system is based on constant circulation of wealth. Example, if Mr. A receives $10,000 income, he gives it to a relative, Mr. B, $250. Mr. B, this $250 becomes his income. Mr. B has to give 2.5% on this $250, which is $6.25 to his parents or relatives as per the sequence of chapter 2, 2 and 5. Zakat has to be given only to Muslims. This is also a big myth and against the Quran. Imagine Mr. X is from some other faith, reads Quran and accepts that there is no other God besides God. Now his parents will still be in the old faith. Mr. X has to take care of them. Also the verse says parents, not Muslim parents. The verse says relatives, not Muslim relatives. The verse says orphans, not Muslim orphans. Quran does not make any distinction between Muslim or non-Muslim when it comes to the distribution of obligatory charity or general charity. The conclusion, what we come up is Quran says God is rich. Quran says God is the provider. Quran says God is bounteous. But if you see the condition of individual Muslims and the community of Muslims and the country of Muslims, it is poverty stricken. Who promises poverty? Chapter 2, verse 268. The devil promises you poverty and commands you to commit evil, while God promises you forgiveness from Him and grace. God is bounteous, omniscient. So it is very clear that the promise of devil is shadowed on the Muslim community. The law of God as per the Quran is those who give zakat, God will specify His mercy upon them. We are leaving to each and every individual to check on their zakat practice. Is it Quranic? If not, repent and fix your zakat and enter in the infinite mercy of God and live a life of financial freedom. God promises happiness here and in the hereafter. Chapter 10 verse 64. For them, joy and happiness in this world as well as in the hereafter. This is God's unchangeable law. Such is the greatest triumph. Guaranteed happiness now and forever. Chapter 16 verse 97. Anyone who works righteousness, male or female, while believing, we will surely grant them a happy life in this world and will surely pay them their full recompense on the day of judgment for their righteous works. Hadith about Zakat. Zakat has to be given yearly once. No, as per chapter 6 verse 141, it has to be on the day of harvest. Zakat is based on the property we hold for 1 year. No, Zakat is based on income and not on the property we hold. Zakat is based on the income generated by the asset. The only time when you pay Zakat on the asset is when you sell the asset and make realized income out of it. Zakat is to be given above the nisab amount. There is no minimum. On the income earned, give 2.5%. If you have more questions, please send us an email. May God guide us into the right path. Peace.